What's going on, Badger Nation? It is great to have you back on the show. I hope everybody out there has had a fantastic Thanksgiving and that we are rolling into December full speed ahead. Steven, my co-host, my friend, my fellow Badger, how are you doing?
Doing well. Really excited for what December holds for us. We at Ad Badger are pulling on our first new hire of December and / of the new year. So excited about that. And it's gonna be a good time.
Steven, you've been doing a lot of surfing and off-roading lately. You're turning into quite the Californian.
Yeah, I've never been super outdoorsy, but just bought a 4Runner. So anyone who owns a 4Runner out there knows that we are a cult of 4Runner owners. It's fun, man. It's fun just getting dirty. It's raining in California a lot lately, so that's new too.
Right, crashing into these puddles is a lot more fun than just crashing into a dirt pit.
Exactly.
Yes. I also want to give a big shout out to this new Apple Podcast iTunes review sent in by, actually, like, this review, like, we were legitimately laughing. So thank you so much, Sniper2156. I'm going to read the whole thing. Best Amazon PPC info out there. Thank you. I'm a longtime PPCer, so 98% of info out there is useless and too basic. You know, as a side note, I am kind of basic, but in the right way. This info is really good and on the cutting edge. And this is my favorite part. My one complaint is that the intro is too short. Be brave. Go for the full 5-minute intro. Just kidding, guys, but I still love you. Thank you so much, Sniper2156. We joke about maybe one day we'll play a prank on everyone, upload a 20-minute podcast, but it's all intro. Yeah. It's like 25 minutes.
It's actually a Badger Bite with 15 minutes of intro.
That's right. So the content will be 1 minute long, and then the intro will be 98% of the episode. Hang on tight, and let's jump into a new voicemail. Steven, we've got a voicemail, and just a quick reminder, anyone out there listening, if you have questions for us that you want us to answer on the show, feel free to go to adbadger.com/voicemail, where you can drop us a line through SpeakPipe. So, Steven, let's actually play this voicemail from Seth. Here we go.
Hey guys, loving the podcast, loving all the information. I'm probably a small to medium-sized advertiser. I have my own brand and spend $6,000 right now a month. Of course, I'd like it to be 10 or 20, as soon as I scale up. But the question I have is about peeling, sticking, and blocking. And the problem I have on some of these, this is a new concept that maybe I did the first time a month ago. And on some of mine, what happens is I'll break out my exact match keyword. Let's say it's Badger. I'll put Badger in its own single campaign. I've been trying that. And then I'll even put a higher bid in the new campaign than I was doing on my auto campaign, just to kind of get the juices flowing and try to get it working. But weeks will go by and I won't get any impressions on that new campaign with the keyword and the higher bid. And so my question is, what's a guy to do in this scenario? Do I say, this has a bad quality score for some reason, this campaign, and do I just cancel it and start a new one, or do I up my bids until something happens? What do you recommend in that case? It's a little annoying because I worry that I'm going to miss out on that keyword in my auto campaign because I blocked it there, but now, so I lost, this good keyword, and my new campaign's not picking up slack. All right, that's all I've got, guys. All right, thanks.
Alrighty, Steven. We got Seth. He wrote in, and this is actually a problem that we've seen before. What are we to do when we've done RPSB? And by the way, if you are unfamiliar with this RPSB, this is the first time you've heard it. We've covered it on the show quite a bit. So feel free just to go to Google and type in RPSB Amazon. You'll find our posts and videos and podcasts talking about it. So what are we to do here? Steven, what's your first reaction when he's done the RPSB? He's done the right way. It was performing. And now all of a sudden this weird thing is happening where the new ad group, the new campaign, the new place where this keyword lives is just not getting any impressions. What's going on through your head here?
Yeah, to break it down is he took the converting search terms from his auto campaign, started targeting those with exact match keywords, but he's just not seeing the same performance. He's not getting conversions on it, even though he was in the auto campaign, and even though he's trying to bid higher in this new campaign, he just can't seem to get the juices flowing.
Yeah, he's actually saying that he's not getting any impressions on this new campaign.
Yeah. And so the question is, what's a guy to do in this situation? There's quite a few things. I'd really love to like hop on a phone call with this gentleman and ask a few more questions, because there's some more info I want to pick at, a lot more things to like kind of consider. But just given this consideration, just given the info that we have, the top kind of things I would look at are, one thing we were talking about is actually double checking that search term report. I mean, even though you took your converting search terms, were you getting a lot of impressions on that search term? Or was that like a long tail search term that you got like a few impressions on, you happened to get one click, one conversion? So there's that. I would just want to double check that this was like a high trafficking search term. The other thing that I would, want to think through is, because it seems very strange that you would suddenly get no impressions whatsoever on this keyword if there's no other like keywords or auto campaigns in your account that could potentially be stealing those impressions. That is why we recommend the B portion of RPSB and block it out. You could have other.
Yeah. It can even be like a stray phrase match that's stealing.
Yeah, phrase match, a broad match. Yeah, I would want to download your search term report and be like, am I getting impressions on this specific search query? And what are my targets that are picking that up? Are those broad match? Are those autos? Is there something else that's picking up these impressions? So those are the first two questions I would want to think through. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, definitely confirming that it is in fact an anomaly. So checking how many impressions it normally got. Maybe it receives only 100 impressions a month, and that's only about 3 impressions a day. So if it's gone on average, so if it's gone a couple days without an impression, maybe it's not too big of a deal because it doesn't have that many impressions per day. So I would look at data levels. Once I would rule that out, then I would confirm if there's any other interfering targeting, just like you mentioned. And beyond that, I would then start to get into this strange world of PPC, which I sometimes call like superstitious PPC or supernatural PPC, where things behave not as they should or not as expected due to some quirk inside Amazon's platform. So it is possible, he mentioned in the voicemail, is it some kind of strange quality score thing? Potentially, right? And that's kind of like supernatural PPC where there's no report, there's no area where you can like look that up definitively and say, yes, this is exactly why, here it is. It was a momentum thing. Existing things generally have more momentum than new things. So if I had to, guess, hey, there's an existing campaign that was spending $100 a day for a year with this keyword, if you turn that off and create a brand new campaign with that exact same keyword, the exact same bid, exact same budget, same everything, I would expect it to get slightly less because it's starting from scratch. And this is kind of this weird, inexplainable thing where it's not really mentioned, but in general, could that be something here? Maybe.
Yeah, you said...
I wouldn't necessarily... Mm-hmm.
You said you would expect it. If you just literally just duplicated a campaign, paused the old one and ran the new one, you said you would expect it to like not get as much traffic and not perform as well. Logically, that makes no sense. Logically, if it's the exact same thing, it should be the exact same. But this is something that Amazon doesn't report on, but we've just seen it happen over and over and over again. And this is where like the superstition comes in. But the concept of like keyword momentum or campaign momentum, and Amazon seems to reward the keywords or the campaigns that have a little bit more of a legacy to them, a little bit more history to them, to perform well, and to like sort of favor them. So that is, I guess, we've talked about
a consideration.
Yeah, and I think the RPSB, like I still stand by it, but that is a method that we'll probably have to do like a 2.0 cover of that sometime in 2020 and kind of talk about like just some special considerations like momentum and how that factors in. So you may experience, like, because we've seen sort of like momentum kind of and history seems to play into it, campaign performance, RPSB at the end of the day, like you you don't just want to run auto campaigns forever. Like you do want to peel out converting search terms and target those with exact match keywords. However, before you just go and like nuke all your converting search terms with negative keywords from all your auto campaigns, we have like suggested in the past waiting at least like a week or 2 weeks of overlapping and letting your new campaign sort of build up some momentum while your auto campaign is still going, and then like basically delay that negative keyword process by a week or two, and just provide that overlap, basically give it some training wheels before you add the negative keywords.
Right, which again, logically makes no sense. Like, why would this even be a consideration? But it is something to consider, especially if, the impression count was low. Because even if there was a slight throttling of the new keyword, if the click volume per day is low, then it can be a pretty big deal. Going from maybe 2 clicks a day to 0 clicks a day is not an unreasonable thing. So that might be something to think about. So confirm it's an anomaly. Try not to, maybe give it some overlap time where you do put the new keyword in and you without blocking it. So it's like RPS and then wait and then block. So that is one consideration that, like you mentioned, we'll probably publish in a 2.0, RPSB 2.0.
RPS wait B.
No doubt. Say that acronym.
RPSWB.
When we were coming up with the RPSB acronym, we really wanted something that you can just say, like a word, like scuba, which we couldn't think of, RPSB, because it's like all consonants.
Yeah, it's
maybe in the 2.0 we can
switch it up.
And now we get right, and now we tell people like just Google RPSB Amazon.
Find it.
Couldn't change it up now.
Right.
So Seth, great question. Thank you so much for it. And anyone else who has questions like this, they want us to play on the show, feel free to jump over to adbadger.com/voicemail. Be a part of the show. It's not bad. It's pretty fun. And let's jump in to our next segment, a data-driven approach to Amazon PPC in December. Okay, Steven. December. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Cyber Monday. We talked about Black Friday. That's over. Now we are knee deep into December, and there's a few considerations. I don't think this will be a massively long episode from here on out, but I do think there's some considerations that people should think about when looking forward in December, and when what kind of trending up and down should they expect. And in case people are curious, this data is actually coming from AdBadger's 2018 data. AdBadger was a younger company back then. We had a smaller sample size. We also had probably newer Amazon advertisers who were, generally newer at the time. So the averages that we publish in our stats post, if you're typing in average ACOS on Amazon, you'll find us say different things there than back here because we update those averages with our newer data. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be looking back at December data. We've done some massaging of the data to help it reflect what is probably more representative, but it is based off our user data. So I think that's a good disclaimer.
Our user data has doubled from this year to last year. So moving forward, our data is just going to get better and better, as we grow. But I mean, this is still useful stuff. We've been using this data for analyzing Prime Day performance, for analyzing Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and now we're looking at just December. A couple weeks ago, we said we were going to create a separate episode about December, and this is it. So we're kind of just trying to help you guys navigate the waters of Christmas and Hanukkah and everything that happens in December.
The waters of Christmas. That's beautiful. That's poetic, dude.
Thanks, man. Got a little John Milton in me, so.
Nice.
Or Shel Silverstein.
Let's jump in. Yes, let's jump in. Steven, if we go through sort of metric by metric, working our way from, some more common metrics like impressions, working our way up to ACOS metrics, let's first start by general trend of December. What is the general trend, even, metric, non-specific? How does December just behave?
So if we're looking at the average traffic per day for December. So we're just like, for the whole month of December, what's like the average daily traffic that we see a day, especially per user? It is bigger than Cyber Monday. On average, the whole month of December is actually bigger than Cyber Monday and Black Friday, which was actually pretty revealing. But the more I thought about it, Mike, I didn't purchase anything on Cyber Monday or Black Friday or Cyber Weekend. I didn't purchase anything. Did you purchase anything online?
I did not. I came really close, but I did not.
We did not. And yet my Christmas shopping's not done for my family and gifts that I'm getting for friends. Like,
not even close.
Like, I haven't bought anything yet. So you better believe I'm going to start shopping now that it's December, and I'm a procrastinator. And it's the procrastinators of this world. Go ahead.
In fact, I think Cyber Monday, Black Friday has become a day for like yourself. Like, what do I want?
True,
like,
absolutely.
Let me see. And dude, I actually believe that the things that Amazon suggests to you, so like there was a moment the day after Thanksgiving, where it was like me and family just sitting around, opening up the Amazon mobile app, and just sort of me being the person that I am, going around to the other members of my family being like, what does your Amazon app look like today? And what does my Amazon app look like today? It's customizing it for me, the individual. It's like customizing it for you, the person. So for me, it was suggesting a lot of like tech and like build your own computer stuff. Cause like that's something that I want to do. And like, I've been looking at a lot of stuff like that. So it's like suggesting things specific to me. Sure, there were some general things that are maybe just so popular for everyone, but for the most part, like I think, and this, small sample size, just the two of us, I didn't like survey loads of people, but I think Black Friday, Cyber Monday is like a day to like buy stuff that you want for sale.
Right.
It's like,
it's definitely,
right?
It's definitely impulsive buying. You're basically just looking at deals and just buying stuff, and you might be buying gifts. But November is more like, December is more like you have your Christmas list of, people's wish lists, and now you're shopping. And you're going to continue to shop through the weekends.
Right. And plus throughout the year, one person will probably buy things just for themselves. Maybe somebody's birthday, maybe on Black Friday, maybe they're getting one or two extra things than they normally get, but you're buying gifts for, a dozen plus people potentially in the month of December. So like right off the bat, I think that is the most interesting thing about the entire month of December, is that the average day in December is actually bigger than Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And now, Mike, here's a great question. Does every day of December have the same performance?
Yes. So this is the other general trend. No, not every day in December has the same level of performance. Meaning December is stacked on a certain time frame, a critical time, I dare say, in December is the reason why it's so much bigger, is the reason why, this is the problem with averages, right? So if you take a look at the average day in December, that's going to be beating Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But that average of December is pushed by just sort of a 10-ish day period where it's so much better than average. We haven't run this number. We haven't compared these sort of 10, how many days is this? We haven't really compared this sort of 10, 11, 12 day period versus the yearly average. But I may say this might be the biggest 10-day streak of all year, where like everything is just going bonkers.
Yeah.
In terms of sales rolling in.
And so if you really want to take advantage of, this data and these stats, because it's really easy to just be like, hey, December, increase all your bids, increase all your budgets. It's holiday craziness, and go for that. However, we did notice a big difference between like conversion rates and ACOS. I would probably say from a week-to-week basis. So it essentially comes down to, the first week of December, and then I guess like the 4 different weeks of December. The beginning week, the middle 2 weeks, and then finally Christmas week plus New Year's. And essentially, it is those middle 2 weeks, those 10 to 14 days, where we see the most traffic happen, the most conversion rate, the best conversion rates, and as a result of that, the lowest ACOS. So let's start breaking it down. We'll talk about sort of the first week, what we see there, and then those middle 2 weeks, and then what we see during the final week of the end of the year, everything like that. But Mike, what do we see during those first sort of 7 days of December?
Mm-hmm. So inside the first week of December, it's fairly average. So, we talked about, there's a 2-week section that make December so great. It is not the first week. The first week is good. It's, again, average day in December is pretty strong anyway, and it's good based off that average. But the first week, we are looking at a pretty typical December day. It is not the most exciting part just yet. And from a personal experience, I haven't done any Christmas shopping yet. So we're in this sort of post-Thanksgiving Christmas shopping lull almost.
Right.
Still better than average. It's still December. However, most people are procrastinating if they're shopping on Amazon, most likely. So that it hasn't really kicked into high gear just yet in the first week of December.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they're recovering from the turkey hangover. They are, just getting off the Cyber Monday craze of shopping, probably going out and starting to get Christmas trees and, set up for December, do all those decorations, put up Christmas lights. They're probably doing that during the first week of December. And then you start getting into after December 10th, things really start picking up.
Right. People are traveling for Thanksgiving and now they're back to work and they're like, man, can I get a week break of spending money for a second?
Right. I mean, this is the 5th of December that we're recording this. And Mike, you just got back from visiting family in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So the point is from this point on, now is the time that people are going to start shopping.
Speaking of New Jersey, I wonder if people would still listen to this podcast if I had the same Jersey accent as my family, where
I wouldn't.
People drink the coffee and walk the dog.
Yeah. So funny. I don't know your family had that accent. It's hilarious.
So that's the first week. The next 2 weeks, we should probably clump together, Stephen. So walk us through what happens in the next 2 weeks.
So the next 2 weeks, so to kind of give some hard data, on December 1st, 2018, with our user base, we saw an average conversion rate of about 8.36%. If you are an Amazon, if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, or if you followed our stats post, the average conversion rate on Amazon is about 9 to 10%. So on the 1st of December, what was that back then? That was a Saturday. 8.36%. So not bad, but it's just for the month of December, that is rated at almost 14% less, 14% worse than average conversion rate for the month of December. It does peak out in December. The highest conversion rate that we see goes up to 10.7%. So you're going from 8.3 to 10.7. So that's sort of the swing as far as conversion rates are concerned. That also is certainly reflected in ACOS, which we'll come back to in a second here. But yeah, after the 10th of December, that's when conversion rates from the 10th up until the 21st, conversion rates stay above 10%. So on the 1st of December, it starts around low 8%. It climbs up to 9. By the time the 10th hits, it stays above 10% for the whole next 11 days.
Mm-hmm. And, in terms of points, going from an average of mid 8, 8.5 to 10, while that might only be 1.5 points, that's actually a pretty significant percentage-based jump. 1 percentage point when you're at 10 is 10% movement. So to go from, 10% plus to mid 8s is actually a pretty significant jump.
Right.
So in these second 2 weeks, this is where things are on fire. So sort of from December 10th to December 9th, all the way up until December 21st, that is when sales are basically going gangbusters, where compared to the average day in December, we're talking, 7.2% higher, 9% higher, 7% higher, 5% higher, 10% higher, 7% higher, 6%, 9% higher. So every single day during this sort of the 9th, 10th, all the way until the 21st, these are all above average days for the month of December. And this is where December gets its high average anyway. So it's this time frame that is where things are going gangbusters. Now, same thing with the ACOS too. That's where the ACOS is doing a lot better than average. We're looking at 13% below average, so lower is better. So 13% below average, 14% below average, 13%, 6%, 8%, 1%, 9%, 10%. Everything is below average during these peak 2 weeks. Now I want to touch on some strategy and techniques here, Stephen. We sort of echo this a lot, but what should one do when they are expecting a time period with better ACOSs than average, better conversion rates per average? What should we be thinking about here?
Yeah, great question. So if you really want to milk this data for all it's worth and get the best possible performance out of your campaigns in December, this would be the advice that I would give you. Rather than just running a December-wide, hey, let's just go crazy, it's big spend, big budgets. Really, I would create a separate campaign just for those 2 weeks leading up to Christmas. Actually, let me see. What would that be in December 2019? So this episode will be going live on the 11th of December, and that would be the time when you hear this episode on Wednesday, that's the day to really kick things into high gear. And you're going to want to run that for about a week and a half up until the 21st or 22nd. And then kind of go back to your normal sort of, so I guess there would be 2 different, campaign strategies that you would have. You would have your broader general like holidays where it's like kind of going from November through like January 5th, which is just in general slightly bigger bids and budgets. But then you definitely want to have a separate strategy just for like cyber weekends that you push really hard. And then definitely those 2 weeks or week and a half leading up to Christmas. In this case, it would be the 11th till the 21st, at which point we see a lot of people in those final few days up until Christmas. I think a lot of people have gotten their shopping done. A lot of people are now starting to travel.
Their shipping isn't going to reach people. Yeah,
right.
Shipping's not going to reach people by Christmas anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, there's still traffic happening on that day, but I mean, it might be people just ordering things like, knife blocks or whatever, just things to like make dinner on Christmas or just like things like that, but not necessarily. It's not the holiday shopping craze. That definitely drops off after like the 21st. So I would just run some intense campaigns, or I guess intensify your campaigns from the 11th to the 21st, when conversion rates are significantly higher, ACOS is significantly lower. So even though your spend is going up, your cost per click is going up, your total return on your investment is going to be higher during those days. So it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So if that is the middle of December, the trailing part of December, the last week is when things similar to the first week in December are going to be weaker than expected.
Yeah.
To the point where, compared to an average day in December, it's actually going to jump up 15% worse than the average day in December, 24% worse than the average day in December. I mean, Christmas Day on the 25th, the ACOS for that day was 24% worse than the average day of December.
Right.
So just
that was actually
Christmas.
As far as ACOS is concerned, Christmas Day was the worst ACOS for the month, averaging at 47% when the monthly average was 38. So yeah, 24% higher than average.
Right, and the whole sort of last week of December sort of follows a similar pattern, not as extreme as Christmas Day, but still worse than the average. So from a actual nuts and bolts optimization strategy, when we are going into sort of December 10th, December 11th, December 12th, like that's when the peak begins. And then a couple days before Christmas, that's when the peak drops off and is done. So from a bid strategy perspective, going in there and bidding more aggressively to be sure that you can soak up more of that high converting traffic, that has to be at the top of your list, and then being sure that the bids are scaled back going into December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, so that they remain a little bit lower for the rest of December until sort of January stabilizes itself again. One of the easiest ways to do that is with a bulk file. Get in there, jump in, change your bids. If anyone out there is using some kind of optimization tool, you can manage your target ACOS. So if you're targeting a certain ACOS, you'll want to sort of increase it. So you want it to get more aggressive during, December 10th to December about 21st. You want to be more aggressive on those days. So you want to bid at a higher ACOS. You want to act as if you want to be even more aggressive. So generally, if you tell something I want a higher ACOS, it will give you a higher bid. And then during the trailing parts, the last week of the month, you want to scale it down. So you want to sort of lower your bids. So that means targeting a lower ACOS if that's the type of optimization tool that you're using. So you could use a bulk file to manually control all this. And at the very least, if you don't use bulk files and you don't use any kind of optimization tool, you'll want to get in there and manually, sort of adjust your bids to take advantage of that high converting period in the middle of the month, and then take advantage of lower cost per clicks during the weaker converting parts of the month toward the end.
Right. And one final sort of piece of advice that I would offer just from looking at this data is the two most important days of December are the 17th and 15th, the 17th and 18th, which are just one, that is it is 1 week away from Christmas. And those are the 2 days that, at least from this data, the average impressions per user jumped to over 60,000 on those 2 days. And those were the only 2 days in the month of December where the average impressions per user went over 60,000. Just for reference, on Black Friday, the average impressions per user was 57,000. So it increases so those 2 days go over the average traffic on Amazon by 14%. For those 2 days, those were also the 2 days when conversion rates were at their peaks, when ACOSs were just extremely low. Overall spend and sales were at their highest on those few days. So those are really the ones that you really want to hammer in on. The days that are just a week before Christmas, those are the most important. So go ham.
Right. So what do we learn here, Stephen? Most people are procrastinators. So we need to modify our ads to account for all these procrastinators out there.
Absolutely. And don't overspend on the days, on the very first week of December and the very last week. Don't overspend there. That'll give you more room to really go crazy on the days that matter in the middle of the month.
Right. And, sometimes people say my ads aren't as effective during this time. Should I go and scale down budgets? I would definitely say bids are a lot more important, because when the conversion rates are lower in the last week of the month and when the ACOSs are higher in the last week of the month, if you bid with smaller, if all of your bids are a little bit lower, then you can help offset any ACOS increase that you might incur during that time frame. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Optimize for the procrastinators, everybody.